Welcome everyone, Dr. Thor here. Get ready for Gnosis. And this is a very interesting report. Again, something I kind of banged into as my usual guidance is on what's happening in the world. This all started with Wilfried Wong, who has been a satanic ritual abuse investigator for over 30 years, dedicated to it, helping many people. And of course, what does he get for his thanks for all that? Is that he gets entrapped by a person who came from Germany, some mother, and got entrapped by a group of people that set him up. Quite obviously, of what went on there. And you can check out my actual videos on that. I've got a couple of long ones. It's a very interesting story. Apparently, Wilfried, to some people, claim that nobody can find him in prison. But he was arrested. He put up the most bizarre defense. You got to wonder what's going on here. This guy was an actual barrister, I believe, and there's a difference between a barrister and a solicitor, but he is qualified in that area, which is very interesting. And I don't know if he's telling the truth or not, even though apparently there seems to be closed camera film of him perpetrating some of these courageous, heroistic acts that he's been demonized for. But what's happening even more than that is the fact that apparently all of these ministers who've been fighting against these Satanists are dropping like flies. They're being wiped out from what I know as radionic attacks, which of course they know nothing about. But let's go back to Wilfried just a little bit here. The point is that Wilfried tried to save a child that he believed was going to be horribly tortured. You got to remember the kind of things that happen to children by these satanic abusers, which are horrific. Everything from strangling to drowning to burning to being molested by large groups. I mean, it's really horrific things that go on, all rubber stamped by the people in power. Who usually participate, by the way. Your good old coppers and politicians and firemen. So all of these people are part of this bigger evil out there where as we move into, and I'm not sure how new this all is. It's certainly been going on, but things are even getting worse now as people are pushed. But the problem is that people are cowards and refuse to stand up to anything. You're not going to find anybody standing behind anybody who needs help to fight against the system, which comes to them and says, well, here's the money, go against this. This is a bad guy. It's amazing they have money and time to go after such menial little individuals when the bad guys, the real bad guys, the criminals who are doing all this stuff in gangs and making millions are never touched by them. Neither are the gang members or anything else. So what they do to act like they are doing something is go after little guys for no reason whatsoever because they've popped their head up to be a threat to the criminal police and all the people connected to them who are all criminals as well. They work with gangs and everyone else. This is a fact. If you don't get that, well, you're a special kind of stupid. So the whole idea is that we have to understand that. But so Wilfried went out there trying to save this young, I believe it was a girl, who he thought would be in horrible conditions, trying to do a good deed, and was fairly well organized through this process, apparently. But not organized enough, because it's amazing how the police can catch anybody they want to, except when they don't want to, or when they turn their cameras off, like they murdered that guy in the subway, the underground in, I believe it was London, who got shot 9 times in the head. Some Spanish immigrant who apparently saw something he shouldn't have. And of course, the cameras were off there. They're always off there. And if you talk about that in the UK, you get into big trouble, as you get into big trouble in all these areas. But here's a guy who was just working at the higher level of his hearts. They tried to, and again, I'm not sure how true it is, they got him having some little knife or something. I believe it was a serrated blade for cutting bread or something. And they claim he threatened the nanny when he grabbed the child, etc., with the knife. We don't know if any of this is true. He then used the knife to slash the tires, which, of course, so the person would not follow them. So, of course, this all makes good sense. if you're going to stop people from coming at you. It's hard to believe that this act, which was really not, nobody was hurt, nothing really happened, to save a child from the justice system who refused to implement and go after people who were bad. And it's a murky story, by the way. Apparently, the police were investigated, find nothing. It's a very murky story. We're not really sure. And it seems like Wilfried got a lot of bad information. It's easy to do that. You get an informer that come in there. They hype you up. This is terrible. If we don't save this child, they're going to be tortured for the rest of their life. We need to get them out of the country. Police will do nothing. This is what good people have always done since the beginning of time, trying to fight against the system. And this is usually what you get from that, is that you get entrapped and then he's basically in jail for the rest of his life. And they tried to make it worse because he had some sort of knife with him, etc. So I'm not sure how true that is, but it certainly could be. And of course, you do what you have to do to save somebody. But that's not part of the morality. It's all about bending over, because after all, you're taught that in your religions. Bend over and spread your cheeks, isn't that what they tell you to do, just like the dead guy on a stick? So the whole idea is that all those things they teach you how to be a coward with is what happens here. So this is the murky thing, and we don't really know what happens. Apparently, one of his crew was either murdered or probably committed suicide in prison. Apparently, with a plastic bag over their head, because they got convicted for 18. Why live in prison for 18 years? Especially most of these people were people in their 50s and 60s. So it means you would die in prison with virtually no chance of getting out before that. And would go, and then they grabbed a lot of other people that, as from what I understand as well, that were working with him, not directly there, but the usual grabbing people that are around him and bringing them in. It's all terrible, but this is very typical of all so-called justice systems. Not really. It's how can we even call them that? So definitely there's extenuating circumstances here, not done by some crazed guy in the street. This was a 30-year-old researcher in this field that have helped thousands of people over his 30 years career, who's investigated this, etc. So to condemn him as harshly as they did really shows an extent of evil from their court system. The other thing is that even though he is an actual lawyer, his entire defense was mind-bogglingly odd. Is that what he thought would win? Instead of taking the high road that I was trying to save, I was on a walking vacation. This is what he said. This is what we get. I'm not sure how much of this is true. You can't get much information. I was on a walking vacation. So I guess the Brits do. You walk for vacation. Oh, with a cup of tea in your hand. He was on a walking vacation and just happened to stumble into all this. I mean, it's comical to think that this guy was in this video. So I don't know what he was thinking, and had nothing to do with it. He had nothing to do with this. He was just there. Now, as outrageous as that could be, it could be a part of the setup that they knew he was going to be in that walking vacation and kind of brought him into it. But apparently he was caught with some sort of, bread knife. Was it a butter knife? And so forth, that went with that. And there's so-called, whatever film means, of all this. But, is that his defense? I would think that if I was in that situation, I would plead the high road, saying that this was a horrible case that the police refused to act upon, and this poor child was going to be tortured, and I had to do the right Christian thing, like the Church of Jesus in London, to save this child. Well, it seems to me that's a compelling argument. Not that I wasn't there, I wasn't involved, and all the stuff there makes no sense. The knife fell out of the sky into my hand. I don't know what's going on with all that. We don't know how much of this is contrived. Why would he possibly do that? That's such a bizarre statement by him. You have to wonder if he was coerced into doing that for some particular reason. Doing that, because as I said, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Not only that, if you plead guilty, you have 30% off of your sentence, which I think he got 18 years. Well, that's pretty sizable. There's a big difference between doing 18 or 20 years or doing 12 years, which, of course, even at his advanced age is actually at least survivable. Um, I just don't understand that. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. The whole case stinks from high heaven. But again, this is the number one anti-Satanist investigator in the UK for 30 years that has been taken out permanently. And there's a lot of muck and mire in the background that, of course, leads to the same old sources of course, the Germans who manufactured all this to entrap him. So the whole idea is that we have to look at this and figure out what's going on. So, and again, this happened about 2 years ago. Also, I just found out what happened about 2 years ago during the main problem with COVID. And, everybody that says that the COVID was nothing should look at the death rate of people with COVID. It was quite high, and a lot of people died with it. And apparently, the Christian anti-Satanist types who are out there banging I'm not sure what they're doing directly or not. You don't hear much about them. You don't hear most of these Christians hide in their little churches and figure out what poor innocent person they can victimize out there like typical cowardice people do. But a Russ Dizzard, who is known for his anti-satanic actions and systems, which talk about metaphysics and how they're taking people out. And of course, he doesn't really understand what's going on. And of course, his understanding of things, they go heavily into astral projection, apparently. They feel that there is a group of demonic people who are astrally projecting to the point of killing people and running havoc in their lives. Well, this is kind of an ignorant point of view. What really was happening with him and his people is they were taken out by radionic equipment that he couldn't figure out, which is a similar process. But what happened, it's not only him, there's 2 or 3 other ministers that worked with him that all died within a year of each other, and his wife died within a few months of it. It has been linked to the fact that he died of COVID, and this is what happened a couple of years ago. Here's a guy's in his, I think it was 47 or somewhere in that area. Certainly not old, like they want to tell us that only certain people died. Well, the point is it's a lot more stretching than that, and a hell of a lot of people died with that depending on what happened. It's a very nasty illness that infects your lungs, and that's what kills you. You get it in your lungs and you don't get it out, and it's a problem. So it's not just your average flu. People need to understand that, so you have to be careful and make sure you keep your immune system up and purify the lungs as best you can. So, without all that ado, the bottom line is that they're trying to cover up with it, saying they don't know what the cause of death was. And this is what you always run into, and of course, it's hard to say. But apparently he was very sick, and so was his wife. And with whatever it was, and they died from this after coming under major satanic attack and being under satanic attack from these groups that he was messing with. And I'm not sure he didn't mention anybody. He tends to not go head on into fighting any kind of groups that I'm familiar with. But he calls this the actual supernatural soldiers that are now been produced to go after Christians. And of course, there is truth to that. This has been going on for some time. The coup de grace of all this stuff is the fact that all these Satanists have converted over, with the help of Carl Weltz and Charles Casamato, over to using radionic type technologies almost exclusively. Of course, they're still doing some rituals, etc., which is the classic way, but they're lazy, so they want to use machines to get the results that they like. And of course, we know that these can be very effective in the right hands. So they've all dropped a lot of their ritual magic stuff, and they're all going into using radionic technology and using different types of machines, which they're instructed on how to build by Charles Casamato. Of course, they're using the very toxic organite machines that the now past and pushed Carl Weltz is no longer with us, nor is his wife from these, getting back exactly what they deserve. But the whole idea is that this is the way it's going, and this continues even today with other people who are hooked up with this. And all you have to do is look on the web, and they're sitting right next to the Satanics talking about it. There's nothing there that is special or coming from my contrivance because I don't like these people. They're your competition. Well, first of all, they're not my competition, and I don't like them. But the point is the facts are the facts. E.A. Kenneding, the #1 Satanist in the world right now, only person that was more influential than him was Anton LaVey, has stated on film that Carl Wells was his mentor, and he learned all of his dirty tricks from him. So, and Carl Wells was running a black magic site for many, many years openly. So it just take a little investigation, but that didn't stop any people because they're cowards, and the people in control come to them and give them money and tell them who the bad guys are, like me, so that they can fight against me. But really what they are is cowards that won't stand up to anybody, and that's what you run into with all of these organizations. As far as I could see, I'm the only independent, quote, radionic type person out there, and the only person independent in general. All the rest of them are very corrupt scumbuckets that run organizations. They're high school gym teachers, literally. So the whole idea is you have these kind of things that go on that we have to understand in the bigger picture of what's happening. But they're annihilating these people. There's 5 or 10 people in the last couple of years, big top ministers, that have been taken out, including their wives. And they were all pretty young. They weren't teenagers, but they're all in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and so forth, and they're all dropping like flies. Other ones claim that they have been feeling horrible and under attack in other ways that are still around, that they've ran into numerous problems and numerous health things are popping up. Well, this is all part of the attack that's been going on these people, that they claim that is being done through astral projective techniques. And as I said, that's highly unlikely. Most Satanists do not have the skill to do that. It is not easy. And it's very difficult to influence people with using astral projection. You can use that to view, and that's still very difficult. Find out what's going on, etc. But to actually go to the next step of that, which is to materialize physical energies, is quite another step in that. And particularly most satanic types, are not very skilled at anything. They're lazy bums using junk technologies, etc. But the bottom line is that this is what's happening. And it's very interesting to see, and you can check these. I'll put a link down below of where they talk about this, particularly with Russ Dizzard, what a name, who has been involved with this for many years. And of course, he thinks that you can judge. But like all these Christians, it's very hard to find out who is the real Satanist here, because these Christians are hateful, low-level people, and what's amusing is the typical Christian weak cowardice attitude that they have. They like to talk warriors, but the fact is that their little God form didn't save them. And they said, well, that's their plan. They took the warriors home sooner. Yeah, that's nonsense. The point is, you're in a losing battle and you're going to lose everything. And the fact that your gods can't protect you even from astral being is pathetic. The bottom line is that they're just two cuts of the same apple. It's like taking an apple and cutting it in half. Which is the real apple? Well, they're both the apple. Christians are evil, self-centered people who are out to destroy everybody. That's what they want to do. They work for all the enslavers. These Christians support the most corrupt, rottenest people, like your military, your police department, your fire department. They get in bed with them. And even if they know it's wrong, they still work with them because they're evil, weak people. And that's what you run into. I know these Christians very well. And saw what they did on every single level, and including against myself, while they support the lowest scum out there. So it's really hard to have any sympathy for these people. If all these people are gone tomorrow, we really don't have any loss whatsoever. The bottom line is the Satanists are running everything anyway. They have all the power and all control, and these people, they're just really, it's kind of like the working against the communists or the Nazis. It's just, it's the Crips and the Bloods. Which is which? Who are the good guys, the Crips or the Bloods? Well, they're basically the same gang, but they have slightly different attitudes, and they're fighting against each other. So it's the same thing here. Christian basically is nothing more than a Satanist. And it's as simple as that. They're evil, hateful people that want to persecute and hurt everybody. This Russ Dillard talked about, somebody asked him, well, the Catholic rites of exorcism, do those work? And of course, he says, no, those are no good. You don't read passages of the Bible. You use your voice to get out of here, Uncle Dizzy Demon. I don't want you around here. You don't smell good. I got to get me a Budweiser. So that's what he's claiming his technique. And I'd like to see that really work. Malachi Martin, one of the famous Catholic exorcists who has a book of all the cases he worked on, certainly have been doing this for thousands of years, while these born-againers, these Texans, haven't been doing it long and are very unsuccessful, like all of them are. Even the Catholics are pretty unsuccessful and only can exorcise a certain amount of these entities, and some of these things can take weeks and days to go through of the exorcisms where these priests put themselves on the line to do it. But that's what happens when you use low-level energies to try and fight high-level powerful energies. So they claim they know how to defend themselves, telling, if somebody astral projects, you say, get out of here in the name of Yahweh. I hold up the gay Jesus to you. So the whole idea is all the garbage there that's never ever worked in that fantasy religion certainly doesn't work with this as well. So they're being annihilated by one group after another. In the last 2 years of top people in this area, there's been many. And it'll continue to be that way. They have no defenses. They have no idea what they're doing. And of course, now that the Radionics is kicked in, which they know nothing about at all, they keep using this astral projection thing like they know something about it because they read a book or two or watched a YouTube video, thinking that they know the ins and outs of this stuff when they really don't. So their methods are never going to work. They're being annihilated, and certainly they're getting their comeuppance. I've got no use for either of these groups personally. I have no use for any religion. That includes all these Eastern religions, Tibetans, etc. They're all weak-kneed people that really have done nothing. And certainly I can't find a difference. The nasty level of your average born-again Christian certainly equals the nasty level of Satanists without a doubt. How they persecute, harass, lie, and cheat you. This is part of these born-again's realities because they're so cowardice. They are the lowest level people that you can get. They are lower than your average Satanist, who basically, I kind of understand their self-centered, egotistical, nasty understanding. This is a rotten world. Grab what you can, use what you can. Well, I'm not sure how, it's hard to fight with that kind of thinking, even though I find it very low level. These hypocritical Christians who are just as bad in their actions, but say it comes from some divine. They screw over people they know and steal from them. Well, they then set up a Thanksgiving dinner and put out slop for the local homeless, which they do nothing for the rest of the year. As we know, you only have to eat twice a year, and that's Thanksgiving and Christmas. Then you can eat it. Survive is all you need. So this is what this goes on with all these people, and it's really a sad and pathetic reality. But this war has been going on for a while. They're taking them out one by one. Nobody is supporting Wilfried Wong. Where are they? Where are you, Mr. Ballard? Tom Ballard with your anti-Satanist? Yeah, in Nicaragua somewhere or in West Africa. You're not jumping into the UK, are you, with your $40 million? With your Mormon attitude, which means take care of your own. And not helping anybody else. These organizations out there are really pathetic. And this is one of the reasons why people don't want to support Ballard in his film, even though, that's like saying that you don't believe in oxygen and everybody should not breathe it when it comes to the fact of abusing anybody. So all of this stuff and this horrendous things that are going on in third world countries aren't going to be stopped with Ballard and his nonsense film like that's going to do anything when we have just the same atrocious things going on and have been for 20, 30, 50 years in the United States that he won't touch with a 100,000-foot pole because he's not going to dare get involved with those people. So it goes on and on because he's such a coward. He's going to deal with people he can easily buy off for a few hundred or a few $1,000s in third world countries that you're never going to solve the problem there. So, but he won't deal with anything domestically, and he won't deal with anything in countries that are the Western countries. Even when a noted anti-Satanist comes out, there's no support from Ballard. Where are you, Timmy boy? Crouched in the corner with your 9,000 other Mormons that you had in your family. You got your magic underwear on, and you're going to take that off and strike the devil. The whole idea is you're doing nothing, and you worked for a criminal government and supported them, and it helped none of these issues. The criminal government that Ballard worked for in his so-called Homeland Security are the people who are causing all these problems and doing nothing about it. And he's really pulled the big one by getting $40 million in donations so he can live like a king, and so can his 9 children and all of his relatives that these Mormons have that are living off his big-time salary. And the Mormons, of course, have been people who spent millions of dollars trying to stop the legalized marriage in California and so many other things they've went after, which is why people like Ellen DeGeneres has not supported him and others have not come out because of their kind of actions in this way, things that few people understand. But the Holocaust is going on. They're eliminating these Christians like flies. They're dropping like flies, and they will continue to drop like flies. And of course, they're not going to get any help. And to rationalize that God took them back and gave them in the middle of the fight, and this is always something to kind of bring a little issue here before ending it. This is something that always has questioned all religions, by the way, because one of the things that question what gave, quote, pagan type gods a more dark aspect is why are the best, most courageous warriors struck down in battle? Why are they taken? And this is what people have then looked at as certain gods as being a dark side or evil. And rightfully so. Why does that make sense? So any warrior religion will have their main god as something of question. Because it's a tricky god, which of course happened in Scandinavian type religions with Odin, who was kind of a higher belief system. Well, you had more of a simplistic right or wrong god, which is Thor, who chose the best of the best and fought the ultimate frost giant evil energies out there. So this has always been a question. How can we possibly give any type of belief system any kind of credit when the warriors in the front are taken out by evil and very easily? So what is going on there? And this is why you can really never believe in any religion, because it's all Mickey Mouse garbage. There is no energies there. There's nothing going on. They're nothing more than archetypes, which may or may not be good for you. I certainly don't think the archetype or imitating or a stereotype that you would like to be about, as shown in the, quote, Jesus model, is anything anybody would really want to be. There's nothing there of any value. So it's just ridiculous. This was a religion perpetrated to weaken people by the Roman Empire so that they would fight back less. Because the people they were conquering were people that had a warrior ethic, and it was the empire was being overrun because of that. And eventually, the great Romans were overrun by the Goths. What does that mean to you? Goths, the Germans, of course, who went in there and destroyed Rome with their basically their Middle Eastern reality that they brought to what is Central Europe. So all of that happens is what's going on. So, to have this kind of a figure and being the level of perversion that is had there, but this is it. Here's their top people being taken out with no problem whatsoever. Just because a little illness came by. They refused to get vaccinations. I'm not sure what that means. I don't believe in them, but whatever. That was part of what happened here. Then they all died, and they all died young. I don't know if they were relatively healthy or not. They appeared to be. Not only did Russ Dizard die, his wife died a month or two later, apparently from would be complications of the flu, otherwise known as COVID. But we're not entirely sure about what's happening there. All these things are kind of, how else could they have died? So they weren't And as far as we can tell, nobody was murdered in any graphic way, meaning when somebody went in there and shot them or stabbed them, they died. Now, the bottom line is, it really doesn't matter whether it was evil directed disease or just disease in general. The bottom line is that to sit there, the people that are watching this saying that God called them back because God has control of everything, and that your reward in life is that you're going to die too of a flu because Jesus wants you to. It's all part of the plan. And of course, we don't get that as mortals, Dr. Tor. Well, you have to think like God does. Yeah, you got to think about killing people, having babies born, tortures, all the things that God lets happen. And it's not a fact of controlling certain aspects, is that this is running wild in the society, and they want to say, well, that's mankind's problem. Well, I don't see how that's mankind's problem when basically there's no support for you to do anything of value because there's nobody to stand behind you. And certainly if you're looking for some sort of guardian angel, you're just going to be turning your head while they produce the axe to cut it off. That's the real reality. Until next time.